Good afternoon, everyone. This is Yusine Alvarez from the Federation of Credit. I want to welcome all of today's attendees for our educational session on automation of cash application and how that impacts deduction resolution. We have a large number of folks joining us today from the National Network of Credit and Financial Professionals as well as the Federation. So in order to keep things a little bit quiet and make things a little bit more civilized, all of our lines have been muted, which means that you will not be able to ask questions while Tom Matarazzo is presenting his educational webinar. But what you can do is on the right-hand side of your screen, you will have a little chat box, and you can submit your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box. And at the end of the presentation, Sharon will actually read the questions to Tom Matarazzo, and he'll be able to answer all of your questions. The other thing I want to do, in addition to thanking you for attending today, is also to let you know that we're very grateful to the Smythe companies for providing this educational webinar and allowing us, sponsoring it so that we're allowed to actually deliver it to you for free. With that, I ask that you give some consideration anytime we have a presentation by a sponsor. Give them the time to at least present a little bit about their company, tell you a little bit about their history, and when you're making your credit decisions throughout your day, you consider giving back to the folks that spend the time and devote the time to the Federation and the National Network. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Frisco, who will tell us a little bit about our speaker today.
Okay, thanks, Yusine. Just a little bit about Tom's background. He has over 25 years experience in developing technology solutions to streamline order-to-cash operations. He currently holds the position of VP Product at Smythe, which includes responsibility for product development, client onboarding, and user experience for Carixa, Smythe's best-in-class credit collections, deductions, and receivables management solution. Tom's prior roles included project manager, BPO, F&A for Accenture, and senior product manager for SunGard, prior to which he was director of client services for Creditech. Early in his career, Tom held various credit management positions at Xerox and Hitachi America. He has earned a BBA in accounting and an MBA in finance from Pace University in New York. I'd like to now turn the webinar back to Tom to begin his presentation.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Yusine, and welcome everyone. Glad I can spend some time today sharing with you some of the latest advances in the Autocash process. It's sometimes a part of the process that is maybe neglected or left to the end of your department analysis as far as what areas you focus on. And I think part of that is the view that Autocash processing is really very complicated and hard to administer. And in one sense, it's clearly focused on the detail, and as we all know, the devil is in the details, and those details come from many, many different places. And the volume of payments and line items can really be mind-boggling in many of your businesses. So I hope to provide you with some background and some knowledge and add to what you already know about cash processing and then how to automate it. So today I'm going to talk about what's the thought process you go through to develop an Autocash process, and most importantly, after that cash is posted, how do you get the deduction creation process started? How do you kickstart it and do as much as you can in an automated fashion? We're going to talk about the deduction life cycle and how technology and workflow fits in with that. So there are a few key components. Of course, the cash application process. Then we move into deduction management, the collaboration aspect of deduction management. How do you collaborate both internally and externally? And of great importance is the web data retrieval process, and then how this all fits into the ultimate collection activity that is going to take place after you've gotten your ducks in order and try to recover some of those chargebacks that really are invalid. Yeah, and as we mentioned, as I'm talking about different things, please do put your questions in the chat box because I really want to try to make this as interactive as possible. So, what are the benefits of automation? So, you're going to affect both your department and your organization. So let's just talk about your department and what the benefits will be with automation. You're going to look towards the timely and accurate cash postings, of course, and you want that to happen within a 24-hour time frame. Minimizing held orders. I mean, one of the least value-added tasks in your department is when collection rep has to come up, take a look at a list of 25 orders and check them off and press enter, enter, enter 25 times. So, and if that's only because of an unposted check, that's a horrible waste of time. You may be getting a lot of data, electronic data, and you're really not using it, so you want to, of course, maximize the use of that data. We're going to talk quite a bit about how the automated retrieval of remittance and deduction information from customer portals is critical. And with that is how you jumpstart your dispute workflow, getting that automated information from the web portals, customer portals, and then immediately sending it out to the responsible individuals. And with this type of automation, you're going to take out of the process the low value-added tasks. Staff is going to be happier, align skills with those people who like to research and those people who like to be on the phone, and increase employee satisfaction and really develop a strong staff that's going to be around for a long time. Now, the big picture, your organization, you're going to improve cash flow, increase profits, and reduce overhead because you're going to be able to do more with less. And then collaboration portals, you're going to improve communication both internally and externally. So this is ideal. I mean, so hard to get someone to pick up the phone today, but they're more likely, of course, to answer an email or respond to some kind of chat. So that collaboration is going to be very beneficial to everyone. You're going to be connecting to your trading partners electronically and really taking advantage of what they're providing to you. And then on the big scale, everything you do is going to be documented, date and time stamped. So you're going to meet all your internal audit requirements with automation. That's going to be a built-in benefit of the entire process. So this is the benefits for both your organization and your own departments. So let's start talking about cash processing. I've thrown up a bunch of keywords up here. And if you just take a moment here to eyeball some of these, and throughout the presentation I'm going to talk about these, and hopefully if you haven't been familiar with them, you'll become more familiar with them. And if at the end is something that I didn't speak about, we, of course, bring it up. But things like tolerances, EFT, mapping, cross-reference tables, my favorite on the bottom, reassociation. We'll talk about that later. So keep these in mind. We'll revisit this at the end just to see if you've, for yourself, if you've picked up a couple of extra tidbits of information. So, Autocash application has improved significantly over the years. There's some great tools available. On the left side, I'm going to call these, you're really going to see this with virtually every ERP, Autocash process, any third-party tool. Let's just talk through those. The multi-company capabilities, multi-business units, and multiple currencies. Pretty straightforward. Everyone should have it. It's critical, of course, when you're dealing with some of the larger organizations that span multiple countries. User-defined business rules to automate the cash application. The key here is user-defined. Everyone's business is a little unique. There's going to be some canned, so to speak, matching rules, but you want to be able to define your own based on your unique billing practices, and to be able to configure those through a user interface and not require some fancy SQL programming to do it, but the user themselves, power user type person, should be able to configure the business rules for the Autocash process. And then when you get more specific, you'll have some customer-specific rules, that unique customer that's behaving outside of the norm. You want to be able to configure those. There's going to be some matching rules that test for discounts, grace days, some write-off thresholds. That's going to be part of every system. Automated reassociation of remittance to payment. There's that word, reassociation. So what happens is payment goes in one direction, going to have an ACH payment, but the remittance is sitting on someone's portal. So the theory is they started out together, right, from the AP side, payment and remittance. They were separated. One went in one direction, the other is on the portal, and now they have to be reassociated or matched up again. So there's several data points within the two pieces of information that can be connected, used to connect the two, so they need to be reassociated, and then the Autocash process can take place. You need to be able to have multiple batch import processing capabilities, multiple file layouts, BAI2, CSV, EDI type files, and remittances are coming in Excel formats. You can probably add PDF formats to this list. So I'd say those are the basics, but now let's get to the next level of sophistication, and that's where on the right in blue you'll see systems with automatic deduction creation based on coding within an EDI remittance, or based on a comparison to data in an invoice or in a line item detail. The system will be able to test to see, okay, this $3.85 deduction is indeed tax, because that's the tax amount on the invoice. So that's, from that point, it can create the deduction, it can code the deduction, and then we'll talk about sending it on its way to the responsible party. Next, you'll get customer reason codes, of course, but you need to be able to convert those to your own reason codes, because internally you want to have that standard set of deduction codes within your organization so you can analyze and report. But you'll need multiple conversion tables for each customer you deal with. And then as we're creating these deductions automatically, there needs to be an automatic assignment based on a workflow, because most likely different people handle different types of deductions within the organization. A common scenario here is pricing versus the warehouse versus unidentified. Clearly there may be 3 people responsible, and as soon as this takes place within the Autocash process, they can immediately be sent out to the responsible party, and they can start participating and collaborating in the resolution process. Next, matching open and close against open and close items. It happens more than we think that people are duplicate paying, taking deductions against a previously closed item. So that's an important piece, important function. And then automatic retrieval of web data. So this is where we'll talk about going out to customer portals and retrieving, whether it's remittance data or debit memos, or go to carriers and requesting proof of deliveries. This needs to be automatic so that your staff isn't spending time with this very low value task. So talk a little bit more about the detail of what you would see in an Autocash configuration. On the left are the different types of configurations, and I'll just talk through some of the some examples of what you would need to do to configure the Autocash to perform the matching. So the first one, you're all very familiar with, this kind of remittance matching. I mean, this is what the human does when they're looking at a check. They're going to say, okay, did the customer provide an invoice number, a PO number, or a reference number? This is something we do very much manually. Another approach might be looking at total AR to see if the customer did not provide any details, but they are paying the complete account balance, or looking at the past due amount to see if they're paying just the past due amount. And now we get into a little bit more complex scenarios. So you have this data cleansing process and scrubbing process. We'd love our customers to provide exactly what we send out to them, but through their own processing, they might provide a contract number instead of an invoice number, PO number. They may add characters or digits to the invoice numbers. So you need to sometimes cleanse. So a couple of ways to do that. Cleansing is remove certain data points, strip strings, certain ranges of data within the remittance, and potentially instruct the tool to go, well, always take the string out from the left or out from the right. Strip from L left, R right. And I have a few examples of that later on. Some matching rules are, does the remittance equal the invoice number? Does the remittance begin with a certain sequence or ends with a sequence? Then we introduce tolerances. There could be amount tolerances or percentage tolerances. Do you consider an invoice match if it's within $2 of the invoice amount, or within a certain percentage? That's a decision you would make. And then you build in some write-offs based on those tolerances, automatic write-off. So you're going to send that small dollar dispute or small dollar difference to a particular GL account, and you can accumulate those write-offs. And then you actually need to analyze that GL account on a regular basis to see if anyone's abusing your tolerances, because some monkey business could be going on where they're testing and seeing what the automatic write-off tolerances are. And then last on this list is earned, unearned, discount calculations, prompt pay discounts. Are there grace days? Can you assign a reason code to the discount for earned and unearned? And do you want to build in tolerances into that test? So this is some of the nitty-gritty on the Autocash configuration. So we talked about, briefly I mentioned data. You receive different types of data in different formats. So payment files, and the only way to interpret a payment file is that you have a map. So think of that. With the map, you can get to anywhere. You can figure anything out. Without the map, this really looks quite unmanageable. Well, what you would get, so if you were dealing with a BAI to lockbox file, if we look to the left, from your bank, you would get a record description listing. Now with this, you become so much more intelligent and knowledgeable. You're not going to work with this as a credit executive on a daily basis, but if you're configuring, if you're setting up or evaluating vendors, this is the kind of information you'd want to become familiar with. So the record description is going to be laid out. It's going to tell you the coding, a name, and the purpose. And then the same mapping document would give you some kind of grouping. Why is it grouped in a certain way? And then with that, you can go to the detail. And we've all probably seen some of these lockbox files. And if you look at, for example, in the first record, the horizontal record, the 01 field is explained on the left in the record description. 02, the group header. We go down the list, 88, and so on. So with the map, you can interpret this lockbox file. As I said, you're not going to look at this daily, but things will go wrong. Someone will need to interpret this. So now you're really in control of understanding what's being processed. Like I said, most of the time this is going to be flowing through. You're not going to look at it. But much of what the banks do is manual. And if you're having anyone key punching it, or even if it's OCR process is used, there are some mistakes made, misinterpretations, so things might fail. And you will have to return, pull this out and look at it. So this is something I think you'll really appreciate what needs to be done when you understand the complexity of this type of file. And there are maps for EDI files, and there are maps for the payment files from the payment file. So whenever you have the map, it's going to make all of this gibberish on the right look much more valuable to you. So I just mentioned EDI files, and that's what this file on the left is. It's an EDI file, an EDI 820. And within here, it's going to have all the payment information. Plus, it's going to have, and what I want to highlight here is the reason codes for deductions. So there are customer deduction codes. I talked about translating them into your company's reason codes. And this way you'll be able to ensure measurement and tracking across all of your customers. So if we look into the detail on the ADX record, that second record listed, is highlighted code number 82. If we just go across the screen, 82 is a defective allowance based on this particular customer's layout. And then the translation would be in whatever your coding scheme would be, but in this case it's the client reason code is 63. And as you go down the page, all of the ADXs are the deductions, and you can translate those, 01s being a pricing error. So my point here is, with the map, you're going to be able to identify the reason codes in your EDI file. As a matter of fact, opening up an EDI file in Notepad is a very convenient way to look at data. And then within the Autocash system you're using, you'll need reason code translation tables. A little bit more about that strip search or that cleansing I talked about earlier. This is what it would look like in practice, and this is done, in this case, through a user interface. So we're going to look at where would we expect to see the information in the ERP system or the open transaction file. So we're going to be looking in the reference number field. And we're telling this particular rule to say, well, strip these characters, K, H, F, from the right side of the remittance information. So by doing that, you're going to have a higher probability of finding an accurate match. So we're stripping K, H, F. If we go down to the sample line, that's the data that's coming in the remittance file. So to clean it up, to cleanse it, and this KHF has nothing to do with your internal business. It's something your customer added for some reason, probably some kind of budgetary reason or some project accounting kind of reason, but you don't need it. So you strip it from the right side. Now you're looking at the result, and now you can go out and match on your own data much more efficiently. Okay, so these are the types of rules you could set up throughout at a company level, or if necessary at a customer level. Okay. So now let's talk about deduction management. You have all this data coming in. What do you do with it? Once you've identified it's a deduction. So customizing workflows, and the workflow is a series of steps that, based on the deduction type and dollar thresholds, you're going to direct it to someone in the organization. So during cash application, if you have identified the deduction type, based on a dollar threshold, you're going to send it to someone. So if a deduction comes in and it's over $100, it's coded as a warehouse, it's going to go to Ken at the Tennessee warehouse. Because Ken's not very, very diligent. So we need to really remind him that, we've gotten quite a few deductions out of his warehouse. So what happens is this workflow assigns it to Ken, directs it to his queue, and he knows he's responsible to work on it. Okay? And then as he's working on it, we need to track the deduction life cycle because it doesn't happen. It doesn't get resolved in a day, typically. It takes time. There might be multiple steps. So the life cycle needs to be tracked with reason codes and status codes. And sometimes when these deductions are set up, there needs to be automated communication, letting people know it's with Ken, and here are the details. But now, to help Ken resolve this problem, you need to go out to customer portals or shipper portals. Well, wouldn't it be great if you could go out to those portals, get the documents you need to help Ken resolve the deduction, and deliver them to him before he even gets to work? And that can be done with web data retrieval automation. And I'll talk about that in detail in a little bit. As I said, there's going to be an audit trail of everything that's done, what the collector has done, what the warehouse personnel have done or not done, how long the changes, how long the deductions have been in someone's queue. All of this is going to be tracked because everything is date and time stamped. And then once your deductions start to get resolved, you're going to develop root cause information, and you're going to start to study and how to improve the upstream processing. And this is going to all be reflected in your DDO calculations. You're going to be able to measure collector or deduction analyst performance, and you're going to start to improve the upstream issues. And you can really only do this with some collaboration, some cross-departmental involvement. If you were developing a workflow for deduction management, how would you configure it? Well, these are the key parts. You're going to look at deductions that are valid and invalid. There's going to be reason codes. You're going to say, if the balance is between 0 and 9,900, it's going to go in one direction. If it's a deduction that's over 10,000, we want it to go to a more senior collector analyst, or we want it to go to the supervisor, because a pricing deduction over 10 grand really should never happen. We want that elevated to a supervisor. And then as the status as the deduction is working, the status is being changed. It starts off as new, it's in progress, and maybe somebody's going to approve it. This is all captured in the workflow this is captured by the status codes in the workflow. And then there needs to be reminders. This is for the individual managing it, it's for the supervisor, it's for the senior executives, perhaps. So you assign a deduction to a salesperson to work on. I mean, that's the policy. It sits in the sales rep's inbox for a week. Well, maybe we need to elevate that to the sales manager. So through automation, you don't want your analyst logging in and sending out manual reminders to someone. You want that to be automated. And then that was the escalation. And it could be internal escalation, it could be external escalation. And part of that is different forms that can be distributed, approval forms, forms that customers require. All of that can be inserted into a deduction workflow. Okay. So I've mentioned web data retrieval. This is just to paint a very simple picture of what happens. The system, the deduction management system, sends out a request, and it's a robot. It's what you've heard so much about. It's the automated robotic response of going out to a customer portal and retrieving data, going out to a shipper's portal and retrieving a proof of delivery or a bill of lading or payment information from a customer. All of these actions happen automatically, thereby eliminating that very low value added task of manually logging into the systems. So this is a role of robots, robotic process automation, artificial intelligence. It all falls under the same concept of an automated process that's going to go out and retrieve electronic data. Or it could retrieve a document, of course. All right. All right. I think this is really important because this slide illustrates Autocash and deduction retrieval, and I call it in stealth mode. This is kind of what happens in a 24-hour period. So envision this. It's cash application time. It's 8 o'clock at night. Everyone's home watching America's Got Talent, Boston Red Sox, or whoever. And Autocash runs. The deduction's automatically identified, created, coded during the Autocash process. It's now 8:10. Autocash is run in 10 minutes. System says, oh, I got to go out to a customer portal. Goes out to a customer portal, gets information. Or maybe the deduction is automatically approved because it's under certain thresholds, or it's denied. And it's sent along its way, along the deduction resolution process, and it's assigned to the responsible party. So while we're sleeping, the system has done all of this for us. Applied the cash, coded deductions, gone out and retrieved information, if available. Of course, the question comes up, is it available on the portal? Well, if it is, it's going to be retrieved, pulled back, attached to the document. If it's not available for that particular line item, you should also be notified that we checked XYZ portal, we looked for invoice or deduction ID number 1234, and there was no further information available. Just what a human would do. So now the information's back, it's been assigned to someone, it's been coded, so now you're far along the deduction process, at least as far as getting the data together. Now the hard part is making a determination. Sometimes negotiation takes place. But that's all happening, taking full advantage of your staff's skills. They're not doing the low value added task. They're doing the more challenging and analytical part of the process. So while you're doing all this and you're coding and tracking, you're going to start to develop information on root causes. You're going to have some reporting dashboards that are going to be available to your analysts and management. And then, you know, there's those invalid deductions. They should not have been taken. You have the proof. Perhaps you've automatically sent the proof to the customer. You sent an invoice copy. You sent the proof of delivery. Now you need to pick up the phone potentially and chase down that invalid deduction for a shortage that really didn't take place. So much of this can happen in stealth mode, as I call it, and really kick-starts the process and pushes you along to resolution. So what are the big picture benefits of this whole process? It's going to improve your productivity, of course, and reduce the time spent on manual tasks. Everything's going to be very visible. Transaction status is always known. Nothing is going to be slipping through the cracks. It's either going to be in a new status where no one has touched it, or someone has started researching it. It's going to be very visible. And now you're going to be able to react because workflow pushes the transaction automatically along. So after one person has done their job, checked a price list, they could automatically change the status code and push it along perhaps to a manager to approve a credit memo. So you're going to react to this problem quickly, and then you can also work upstream and fix the problems much more quickly. And it's going to improve accountability. Monitoring the time to resolve issues is a fantastic way for continuous process improvement. You're going to learn who is best at resolving issues, where the bottlenecks are in the organization, and it's going to have a broad impact. So what can you expect by Autocash and workflow automation? From the deduction side, you're going to see a significant, we expect in our systems, at least 25 reduction in a salesperson's time that's spent on deduction management, and the whole team's going to be happier because of that. An ROI should be delivered in less than 6 months with an Autocash workflow tool. It's very measurable and something you could take advantage of very quickly and accurately. Did I see a question, or I jumped the gun there? I thought I saw a question. It was blinking. So, back to the keywords in cash processing. As I said, I just put this up again. Hopefully I've talked through some of these and maybe explained added some background to what these mean. And then when you come across them during your analyses, you'll be better prepared to make an evaluation of the system you're looking at. So this is who I'm with. I'm with the Smythe organization. We have several brands under the Smythe umbrella. I'm responsible for the Corixa software. That's the credit-to-cash tool that is a modular SaaS solution. So ERP system really can't accomplish what you want it to, so people turn to Corixa to manage the credit-to-cash process. Smythe Credit Tech is our traditional outsourcing unit that's been around for many, many years. Credit to Be is our credit information arm, and Live is a collection agency. And we're all under the same umbrella. We all use the same systems, and every one of our services is integrated with each other. So that's a little bit about who I'm with and what we offer. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions that may have popped up.
Okay, Tom, this is Sharon. We have a couple questions. The first question that I have, it says, after you define the processing rules once, does the system remember them for the next time? And also, does it learn from them going forward?
Yes, I mean, the answer is yes in both cases. The matching rules can be set up for, there can be multiple matching rules. You could set it up for individual companies or specific customers, and then, yes, it learns that a particular customer was typically submits their remittances in this way, and it remembers that, and it is more accurate the next time around.
Okay, we have another question. The question is, how can an AR professional make the operation department understand the importance of resolving a pending open chargeback within a 30-day period?
Well, that's a broad question. With some of your deductions, you are dealing with time frames that you have to submit the inquiry or dispute a deduction. So when you're dealing with your major retailers, they do have vendor manuals, and in those vendor manuals, there'll be specific guidelines as to when you must submit your disputes or make your inquiries and how to go about it. So the direction is be sure you're intimate with the vendor manuals, and you can actually turn to an organization by the name of the RVCF, and they provide a lot of the information on the vendor manuals. They actually have a service that helps track what's in the vendor manuals and changes that take place in those manuals. So I would encourage you to meet with, visit the website of the RVCF, and if you have any specific questions, you can give me a call directly, and we can put you in connection with the right person.
Okay, Tom, another question just popped up, and it says, do you know if any SAP implementations are also using Corixa? We're going to be implementing SAP next year.
Well, the SAP implementation is a significant investment. It has a lot of power. Right now, I'm not working with any SAP implementations, but I think what you need to do is assess what your specific industry requires, and of course, see if SAP, the core product, can meet those requirements. Not knowing your industry, vanilla SAP may be able to do it for you. If it's not, depending on the complexity of your industry, it may not suit your needs. You may have to turn to the outside.
Okay, there was one more question posed, and I can answer this question. The question was, what's the best way to obtain a copy of this presentation? We will be sending a copy of the presentation in a PDF format sometime today or tomorrow, and we will also upload it on our FCFP website. And I believe there are no more questions, Tom.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
we're going to
thank you for everyone's time. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to
a little bit.
We'll close today's webinar. I would like to thank Tom for taking the time to present to our group today, and thank all of today's attendees for taking time out of their day to join us. Thank you all again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.